Imagine walking into a bank with $100. You deposit it. You feel safe, responsible, grown up. But what if I told you that the moment your money enters the banking system, it stops being just your money? What if that same $100 quietly turns into $900, then $9,000, then an entire economy built on numbers that don't physically exist? No printing press, no gold, no real production, just numbers multiplying in silence. This isn't a theory. This isn't a conspiracy from the internet's dark corners. This is the foundation of the modern financial system. It's called fractional banking. And once you understand how it works, you'll never look at money the same way again. Setup, setting the stage. For most of human history, money was simple. You had it, or you didn't. Gold coins, silver bars, grain, livestock. If someone lent money, they gave up control of it until it was repaid. If a kingdom ran out of gold, it ran out of power. Money was finite. But somewhere along the way, a quiet transformation happened. Banks stopped being vaults. They became factories. Factories that didn't produce goods, but produced money itself. And they learned how to do it without asking permission from depositors. This is the story of how that happened, step by step. Origins, where the trick began. The story begins not with banks, but with goldsmiths. In medieval Europe, gold was dangerous to store at home. So people paid goldsmiths to hold it safely. In return, the goldsmith issued a paper receipt. At first, these receipts were simple IOUs. You could return the paper and get your gold back. But something unexpected happened. People stopped redeeming the gold. They started trading the receipts instead. Paper became money. And the goldsmiths noticed something crucial. Most people never came back for their gold at the same time. So the gold just sat there, unused. That's when the temptation appeared. What if the goldsmith lent out some of the gold, while still issuing receipts for all of it? As long as not everyone demanded their gold at once, no one would notice. And for a while, no one did. This was the birth of fractional reserves. The core mechanism, how money is created. Here's the part almost no one explains clearly. Let's say you deposit $1,000 into a bank. The bank is required to keep only a fraction, say 10%, as reserves. That means it keeps $100. The remaining $900? It lends it out. Now that borrower spends the $900. It ends up deposited in another bank. That bank keeps $90 and lends out $810. This process repeats, over and over. From your original $1,000, the system can create $9,000 or more in new money. Not printed, not earned, not taxed, created by debt. Money doesn't enter the economy first, debt does. And this is the key illusion. The system treats loans as assets, but deposits as liabilities. Your savings are someone else's leverage. Rise, when governments joined the game. At first, this system was fragile. If too many people demanded their gold back, banks collapsed. This happened repeatedly. So governments stepped in, not to stop the system, but to stabilize it. Central banks were created. Their role? Lend to banks in emergencies. Act as lenders of last resort. Control interest rates. Backstop confidence. Gold backing slowly disappeared. Paper money replaced metal. Then even paper backing vanished. By the 20th century, money became pure trust. And trust could be expanded infinitely. Fractional banking wasn't a bug anymore. It was the engine of growth. The big shift, when money detached from reality. The turning point came when currencies were no longer tied to gold. Once that happened, there was no natural limit. Banks could expand credit. Governments could borrow endlessly. Central banks could intervene whenever things broke. Growth became dependent on ever-increasing debt. If credit stopped expanding, economies slowed. If debt stopped growing, markets crashed. So debt had to grow. Forever. Money was no longer a reflection of value. It became a tool to steer behavior. Borrow to survive. Borrow to grow. Borrow to compete. A breaking point, the cracks appear. But systems built on leverage always face limits. Every expansion creates fragility. Every loan assumes future repayment. And eventually, reality pushes back. bank runs, financial crises, debt spirals. 2008 wasn't an accident. It was the system behaving exactly as designed. Too much debt, too much leverage, too little real backing. When confidence breaks, money evaporates. Not physically, digitally. Fallout: who pays the price? Here's the part rarely said out loud. When the system collapses, debt remains. But money disappears. Banks get rescued. Governments print liquidity. Asset prices recover. But wages lag. Savings lose value. Inflation quietly transfers wealth. The public pays, slowly, invisibly. Fractional banking doesn't fail equally. It concentrates power upward. Those closest to money creation benefit first. Everyone else gets the leftovers. Failed fixes: why reforms never work. After every crisis, reforms are promised. Higher reserve requirements, stricter regulations, transparency. But the core remains untouched. Why? Because the system can't survive without credit expansion. If banks stopped creating money through lending, governments couldn't finance deficits. Asset markets would crash. Growth would stall. So reforms focus on symptoms, not the mechanism. The trick remains. Modern parallels: same trick, new era. Today, most money isn't even printed. It's typed into existence. Digital balances, credit lines, derivatives. The scale is unprecedented. Global debt is larger than global GDP. Interest alone requires more borrowing. It's a feedback loop. Central banks now openly admit they don't control money supply. They manage expectations. Confidence is the real reserve. The paradox: why it keeps working. So why hasn't it collapsed completely? Because as long as people believe their money is there, banks are safe, governments will intervene. The system holds. Fractional banking is a confidence machine. It doesn't require everyone to understand it. It requires everyone not to panic. 3 clear takeaways. Takeaway 1. Money today is not a stored resource. It's a circulating promise. Takeaway 2. Debt isn't a side effect of the system. It is the system. Takeaway 3. Financial stability depends more on belief than reality. Warning: the open question. Every system built on trust eventually faces a test. Not tomorrow. Not next week. But history shows the pattern repeats. The question isn't if fractional banking breaks. It's how much can be created before belief runs out. Call to action. Natural close. If this changed how you see money, if you feel slightly uncomfortable, that's the point. Subscribe if you want more. Stories that explain the systems we live inside but rarely question. Because once you see the mechanism, you can never unsee it. And the real power begins with understanding.